In a rising elevator, Thomas awakens. WCKD supply crates are with him. When the elevator reaches the top, a door above him opens, revealing a swarm of Lord of the Flies-style young men/boys. Thomas bolts, but comes to a halt when he finds he's in a small glade encircled by massive walls. Gally subdues Thomas and prevents him from running into a maze accessible through a door in the wall. Albie, the group's leader, and his consigliere Newt explain the issue to Thomas. The elevator arrives to the surface once a month with supplies and a new lad. They all call themselves Gladers and reside in the Glade. They have no recollection of their pasts or why they were placed there, but their names return to them after a few days. Each boy is assigned a separate task. Some are builders, while others are runners. Every day, a door in the massive wall opens and shuts. The entrance opens into a labyrinth that encircles the glade. Runners make their way through, seeking for a way out. If you're trapped in the maze overnight, the Grievers get you and you die. Every night, the maze varies. Albie was the first of the Glade's boys to come. Nobody knows why they've arrived. Thomas develops a connection with the boy who arrived a month before him. He's the group's youngest member. Chuck is his name. There will be a party for Thomas that night. Gally is wrestling one of the other lads and invites Thomas to join in. They end up sparring, and Thomas learns his name after hitting his head on the ground. Thomas experiences a dream that night. It's full of flashbacks, yet one lady remarks, "Wicked is good." Albie shows Thomas around the city to show him more of the sights. When the lads come, they cut their names into the wall. When someone dies, the name is crossed off the list. Thomas strives to fit in and is assigned the chore of digging up fertilizer from the woods. While there, he is assaulted by Ben, a runner who has been stung by a griever. "This is all your fault," the other youngster says as they fight. "I noticed you." That youngster has a condition known as the changing. A sting is said to induce excruciating agony and make you violent, because there is no cure. They throw the youngster into the maze at night. Just as the doors close, everyone is alarmed that a griever attack occurred throughout the day. Thomas has another dream that night. It's mostly the lady telling him that Wicked is well, but he also recalls himself and a girl of his age sitting across from each other at workstations going through diagnoses. The next day, Albie returns to the maze to retrace Ben's steps and discover what occurred. During the day, it rains, it's becoming late, and Albie hasn't returned. All of the lads congregate at the maze's entrance. Just as the doors close, the lead runner, Miho, emerges with a severely injured Albie. Thomas enters the maze to assist them, but the entrance closes behind him. Miho and Thomas try to keep Albie's body secure from the Grievers by suspending it with vines. While within the maze, Albie got stung. One of the Grievers arrives and follows Thomas. The Grievers resemble enormous insects with robot legs and scorpion tails. As the maze's walls shift, Thomas and the Griever run about a bit. Finally, Thomas is able to pull the Griever between two colliding walls and squish Griever that has died. Gally summons the Gladers the following day. Most people are ecstatic that Thomas killed a Griever. However, another faction, led by Gally, believes that the restrictions they have in place were put in place to keep everyone safe, and that things have altered since Thomas came, such as Grievers attacking during the day. The elevator arrives, and everything changes. The guys go outside to see what the elevator has delivered them. There are no supplies inside, only a young girl. She glances up and says, "Thomas." A message in her palm says, "She's the last one ever." Gally demands that Thomas be punished since non-runners are permitted in the maze. He dislikes the fact that the girl recognized Thomas. He's worried since the elevator hasn't come back down since they brought the girl out. Thomas, according to Newt, can be locked up overnight without food and will become a runner the next day. Gally is enraged by his indulgence. Some of the guys return to the maze to examine the Griever's carcass, which irritates Gally even more. They discover a strange apparatus inside with an electrical display that reads the number 7. The gadget is also labeled WCKD. The lads conclude that whomever brings them supplies is also responsible for the Grievers. Miho shows Thomas a labyrinth map. As the maze evolves, various outer portions open each day. Each outer segment is labeled with a number. Section 7 was open last night. The young lady is awake. She's on top of a tower, hurling objects at the lads on the ground. Thomas shouts up to her, "It's him." She agrees to allow him in. He says that her memory has been erased, but she will recall her name in a few days. She claims to have already remembered her name. "Teresa here," she recalls Thomas as well. He informs her that he has had visions about her and a lady who says, "Wicked is good." Teresa awoke to find 2 syringes in her pocket as well. That night, Thomas struggles with the consequences of his imprisonment. Chuck pays him a visit and delivers him some food. He also requests that Thomas present his parents a little carved figurine created by Chuck. Even though he doesn't remember his parents, he knows they remember and miss him. Thomas returns the statue and informs Chuck that he will be able to deliver it to his parents personally. The next morning, Thomas and Miho enter the maze using the gadget they obtained from the Griever. The gadget eventually makes clicking noises and leads them to a new portion of the game that Miho has never seen before. Miho is particularly concerned because all of the maze's exterior parts appear to be open. They arrive at a large area labeled WCKD loading dock, which leads to a dead end. But the gadget changes from red to green, revealing a new way. That route leads to what seems to be a sewage tunnel. They return to the Glade because the tunnel's edges contain the same slime that the Grievers exude. Thomas chooses to use one of the syringes on Albie, who is still shifting. It actually improves him. When he returns to consciousness, he informs Thomas, "You were their favorite." But we don't find out what he's talking about because outside doors all across the maze begin to open, letting in hordes of Grievers. The Griever assault, which kills many of the lads and ruins most of their hamlet. Albie is among the fallen. After being captured by one of the Grievers, Chuck is rescued. They eventually slice off its tail. Thomas understands after the assault that the poison from the Griever stings helps the victim recall, so he takes the sliced-off tail and stings himself, and he remembers a little bit more. Thomas recalls that the maze is not a jail, but rather a test. He notices the other boys in incubation tubes. Many of them are terrified. Along with Teresa, he views himself as a scientist. The Gladers use the second syringe, and Thomas is healed. He admits to everyone that he is one of the persons responsible for everyone's presence. Gally is enraged, and he and his friends bind Thomas and Teresa to stakes outside the maze's entrance as an offering. However, half of the group is still with Thomas, so they release them. The Gladers are now split. Gally informs Thomas that he'd rather die attempting to escape than perish in the Glade. Thomas leads a party through the maze. They return to the loading dock area and are attacked by Grievers once more. They enter the sewage tunnel, which leads to a closed door. To go through, they require a number code. They understand the code must be the regular opening sequence of the maze. Teresa enters it, and everyone exits through a door. All the Grievers behind the walls are crushed. The youngsters wander along various corridors until they get to an escape door. They pass through and are now inside the lab from Thomas's dreams and recollections. All of the scientists have died. A video begins to play. The previous lady introduces herself as Ava Page and informs the youngsters that they don't remember this, but there was worldwide catastrophe caused by something called the flare. She was a member of the dubious World Catastrophe Kill Zone Department, WCKD, which claimed that by examining the children, they could monitor their minds and discover a cure. While she is speaking, guerrilla troops burst in and begin killing other scientists. She expresses her gratitude that they passed the first exam and reminds them that wicked is good. Paige shoots herself in the head before signing off. A door opens, going to the outdoors. Gally appears before everyone else can depart. He's carrying a gun. He claims they all belong in the Glade. He prepares to shoot Thomas, but Chuck dodges the bullet. Gally's chest is wounded. Chuck dies after handing Thomas the bloodied statue. A gang of what appear to be guerrilla combatants from the footage rushes in and transports the children outside to waiting aircraft. They appear to be in the desert at first, then we pull out to discover that they are outside of what was once a metropolis. Buildings have been demolished, and everything is covered with sand. They fly above the maze and the Glade, and no one questions why the helicopters didn't just land within the Glade and save the children there. Paige is shown alive and wiping fake blood off her head in the closing scene. She claims that the children had taken the bait. More children survived than she had hoped. The maze was a success, and Phase 2 may now continue as the chopper takes off to the ruined city. More to come.